What's up, everybody?
Hey,
We are
let's go.
back. I know you missed us. I know you missed seeing our beautiful faces.
Of course.
We are back for episode number 10. We had
Two
the
full hands.
lovely, the fantastic guest of Kurt Davids was on our
A
previous
legend.
episodes. And
A
if you, for
legend.
some reason, skipped over those, he's absolutely legendary, and it's only going to get the lore of Kurt Davids is only going to get even more legendary
Can
as
only
time
grow.
goes on. It can only grow. So if you somehow skipped over those sessions, those episodes, you got to go back and listen to them. You got to go back and watch them because definitely worthwhile.
And that's actually
Andrew,
where we get our topic, isn't it, for
it
today?
is. Yeah.
Is from our conversations in parts 1 and 2, really, of the episode with our dad. So go check that out if you haven't, because good stuff. Good stuff.
Good stuff indeed. We are talking today about communication, and this can look a bunch of different ways, and we will get into it. But I'm going to communicate this. Andrew, how are you doing? How has your week been? You're back in school. The kids are back. How's everything going for you?
You know, we are exhausted. in this house, it's the exhaustion of going back to school after a couple weeks off, getting the kids back into a routine, getting myself back into a routine, and like actually working.
Yeah.
Teachers, we have it so good as teachers, so good. We get breaks, right? And so um immediately after those breaks, it always is a little bit rough. Getting back into it, um, dealing with a little bit of sickness with the kids and the flu, and it's just kind of going around. But hey, we'll get through it. We're all right. We're all right. How about you?
A
Let
good
me
way.
communicate to you. Let me communicate the question to you as well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm very busy with business stuff and work and everything. My master's courses start back up again next week, so that will be just another thing thrown on to the plate. But everything is good. Chilling. Just
Good
chilling like a
deal.
villain, ready for tennis season to start up. That's
Yes,
really
we're
getting me
getting
through it.
close. We're less than 2 months away for that.
I am so excited for that, and all the things that come with it.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll talk about it on podcast in 2 months or whatever. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, to answer your question, things are good. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for communicating that. And
Absolutely.
I think that's a good skill to have is communications.
It's a skill I learned on the Topeka West tennis team, believe it or not.
From who? Who taught
From
you that?
the legend Coach Davids.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's also where I learned it from. So let's
Hey,
get into it here. Let's kind of dive in what communication is. So communication, in my opinion, and you can correct me if you're wrong, if you have a differing opinion here, it's a performance skill. It's a skill that people have. It's not just talking. Sure,
absolutely.
talking is a part of it, right? But I think it's a skill that athletes and non-athletes need to master and have at their disposal.
Yeah. Definitely a skill. And it's not just speaking, it's listening as well. Like there's two parts of communication. It's the communicator and the person who is being communicated to. And so it's not just being able to talk well. It's not just being able to ask questions. It's being able also to listen to somebody who's trying to get a point across, understand what they're saying, be able to read their body language, and all these things. We'll get into a bunch of it, but it's not just talking. Some people think that, and that's not the case.
I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think of communicating is just talking. But you make a great point about how it's called communicating for a reason. It's not called talking. It's called communicating because there's multiple aspects to it. There's listening and there's understanding and carrying a conversation and continuing that as opposed to just talk, 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 talk. So in terms of athletes, there's really three main areas of communication, in my opinion. Here, there's communication with your coaches as an athlete. There's
Yep.
communication with your teammates, and there is also communication with yourself.
Yeah.
Verbal,
Definitely.
nonverbal, in terms of talking to yourself. There's a lot of times, as tennis players, we've thought things to ourselves, but may not have said it. That's still, in a sense, communication. So those are the three big areas. I think you can kind of branch other things out into there. But as far as the main communication sections, those are the three.
Yep. Yep. I'm with you on that one.
So I want to know, for you personally, Are you an over communicator or are you an under communicator? Which one would you classify yourself as?
Well, ideally, hopefully, I'm a just right communicator.
You're just a
I
normal
am,
communicator.
yeah, a regular good communicator, but I don't think that that's probably always the case. I think it honestly probably depends on the situation a little bit. If I am in the role of teacher to my students or head coach to my players or my players' parents, usually I'm probably an over communicator. I mean, you know the length of the weekly posts that I send out for the players and the parents, and sometimes they're pretty long. Um,
Sometimes I don't even read them. Sometimes
I
I
know,
just skim
I
through. Yeah,
I know.
I know.
And so I tend to probably over communicate a little bit in that sense. In probably some other aspects of my life, I probably under communicate a little bit, or maybe think that I'm communicating effectively, but maybe don't confirm that communication, or maybe I make
Mm.
assumptions about how I'm communicating or what the message is that I'm trying to send, and maybe the listener is interpreting my message differently or not having the same understanding of what I'm trying to say. And so, again, I think it just kind of depends on the situation whether I am an over communicator or an under communicator. What do you think about you? How do you feel like you communicate?
I think you kind of hit it on the nail on the head. It's very dependent in terms of jobs and working, like coaching, or in my normal everyday job as a restaurant manager. I like to over communicate. I like people to know where I'm at, how I see things, what I expect of them to be doing. I think over communicating is good in that sense. But there's definitely some times where maybe I'm talking to just a friend or something. Like I don't want to over communicate because I also want to hear, their side of things or what's going on with them. I definitely think that I tend to over communicate more, but I do think it's situational here and there as which situation you're in and who you're talking to. And it also depends on, what the other person wants to hear. If they're kind of not giving very much back in that conversation, I'm probably going to under communicate and not keep that conversation going. But if they're giving something back and we're, feeding off each other, I think that then over communication is kind of my MO in that situation.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Okay. Let's talk first about communicating with coaches. Austin, last week when we talked with our dad and even in a couple weeks ago when we were doing our first part of that episode, he was talking about being able to effectively communicate while we were on the tennis court, right? You got to be able to communicate the score and the in or out for the ball bouncing, and but he was also talking about learning how to communicate just with superiors, with a boss, with a teacher. And he told stories about how some of those athletes don't communicate. They don't speak up when they need to. They don't ask questions when they misunderstand something. So I want your perspective. You've got a lot of experience with coaching athletes and some experience with athletes from other sports. In your opinion, why do you think that athletes hesitate or refuse to speak up for themselves and ask questions?
That's a really good question. And I think it varies from athlete to athlete, but the most common reasons that I see are that they don't want to be judged or thought less of because they don't know that information, because they're asking that question, which in reality is kind of silly because as a coach, as somebody who's had experience coaching, I want people to ask questions. I
Right.
want to make sure that whatever drill I'm running or whatever the scoring format is understood. And if it's
Yeah.
not understood, I want that question so I can clarify. I've seen a lot of times where, somebody doesn't understand a drill that we run and why didn't you say something? I asked if anybody had any questions or anything and nobody said anything. Why did you not speak up? Well, I didn't want to be singled out. I didn't want, to ask that question in front of all my friends and feel like I wasn't paying attention or something.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times it just comes back to being afraid, just being afraid of the social consequences of it. What are my friends going to think of me? Is coach going to think any less of me? Am I going to lose playing time because I asked coach a question? I really don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
100%.
fear. It's an internal fear.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. And I have a little bit of a different perspective as a teacher. You've spent time in the classroom as well as a para. So you kind of know that dynamic also. But one of the things that I talk with my students about is like I don't know what to help you with unless you tell me what you need help with. Like unless you ask a question
Exactly.
or say, "Hey, Mr. Davids, can you repeat that?" or "Can you go over this with me again?" Like, I'm in year 9 of teaching chemistry. I've kind of gotten the rhythm of what I say and how I say it when I give a lecture or give notes or, present a new topic to the students. And if you don't understand something that I'm saying, then I'm just going to keep on rolling if you don't ask me anything. Like, I'm just going to keep moving on, assuming that you understand it. But if you don't, then you're going to be lost with the stuff that builds on things. And so, like,
Yeah.
as a student or as a player, a lot of the concepts in terms of strategies that we talk about, or, being able to build a stroke, you start at the basics and then you work up, like, on how good your forehand can get or how to hit a serve or whatever. And if you don't understand something at the beginning of that process and you don't say anything about it, then you're building bad muscle memory. You aren't doing the stuff that your coach wants you to do. You're building, you're making bad habits. And then it's harder later on to change that and make your shot the best it can be.
Yeah.
And so I
Absolutely.
agree with you. I think 100% it's fear of embarrassment, fear of that social. I don't want to act like I don't know this because nobody else is asking a question. And if nobody else is
Yep.
asking a question, well, that surely means that they understand it. And I don't want to be the only one that doesn't understand it. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. But when really I've got a class of 25 students, 10 or 15 of them are probably thinking, wait, whoa, I'm not sure about that. I maybe should I ask a question? No, well, nobody else is asking a question, so I'll just wait. And if 10 or 15 people are having that same thought process, more than half of my class is lost. They're not
Yep.
up on what I'm saying. They don't understand the things I'm trying to communicate to them. And so, like, we have to, not only as athletes but students, employees at a job, you have to be able to ask a question. You have to have that confidence in yourself to know that you're not going to lose that self-worth. In fact, you're superior. If they're a good superior, teacher, coach, boss, if they're good at what they're doing, they're going to appreciate you more. Like you said, as a coach, I want my athletes to ask questions. That person will appreciate you more for asking that question
Mm-hmm.
because they know you're invested and they know you want to learn and they know you want to do your job well. So you ask your question to be able to do that job better,
I
and they will
almost like
appreciate
it.
you for that.
I almost like it as a coach, and even when I was in the classroom, like I liked it a lot more when somebody would ask a question. I liked it a
Absolutely.
lot more because that shows me that you're eager to learn, that you have a question and you're like, okay, I want to make sure I understand this. I'm getting to the bottom of it. I want to clear some things up. My favorite things in the classroom were when, 3 or 4 people would raise their hand and somebody would ask a question and then 2 hands would go down because they had the same question, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
it's kind of like what you're saying with people are probably thinking it and nobody's asking it. Well, if we're all thinking it, somebody's got to ask it, and then everybody has that question answered now. I also think I wanted to say this. I think of like a non-athletic thing of just a job. You get an entry-level job and you want to work your
Yep.
way up. If you want to progress your skills in athletics or if you want to work your way up in a job, ask questions, be curious, and figure out, how to improve your skills to climb the ladder, so to speak, and get better at whatever it is you're doing. Now, you were talking about having a little bit of a different perspective as a teacher. I think you also have a different perspective as a head coach as well in terms of clarity and complaining. So speaking up in the sense of complaining and speaking up in the sense of just trying to get clarity. You have experience with that as a head coach and some of the drills you run?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, again, every situation is a little bit different. Every athlete is a little bit different in the way that they speak and the way they ask their questions. I think as a head coach, it's probably important for me to understand that dynamic with each player, like what their true intention is. Are they really trying to just ask a question and learn, or are they like really ticked off and making a complaint about something? And so I have to keep that balance in mind as a head coach. But from the athlete's perspective, I think the way that they ask the question, like the tone of their voice, right? Like if it's an
Mm.
accusatory, attacking tone, or if it's like a tone of true curiosity, right? That's a really important thing of how you ask that question. And also the timing of the question. If you're interrupting a coach or if you're interrupting somebody that has authority over you or you're supposed to be respectful towards, if you interrupt them while they're in the middle of something, that's not good timing, right? Because maybe your question gets answered as they continue to speak. And so you should be
Yep.
patient and you wait and you continue to listen. And sometimes if the question is maybe a little bit more personal, maybe your timing is after practice or before practice or on a break where it's just you and the coach that are having that question and answer conversation instead of you and the coach in front of the whole team. There's been times where, a player has asked me questions that I don't want to address in front of the whole group. So I'll
Yep.
say, come find me after practice and we can talk about that. Or come talk to me tomorrow before school and we can figure that out.
I like that.
So yeah, so like the timing of that is really important, and the tone of how you ask that question I think is really important too. And I think and we'll get into communication with our teammates here in just a sec, but I think that sometimes the complaining aspect happens a lot from player to player
Yeah.
and kind of can slowly build up a wall between the coach and the players. So that complaining doesn't always have to be from player to coach. Like and probably if you're respectful of the people that you are should be respectful of, you're probably not complaining to their face about something that they're doing. But that behind their back, around on the way kind of complaints and bad style of communication can be just as detrimental as that face-to-face stuff. And so like it's okay to ask for clarity. It's okay to ask somebody to repeat something, or re-explain a drill or re-explain a concept or something if you don't understand something. If that coach is good at what they're doing, if the teacher is a good teacher, they will have multiple ways of explaining something. They'll have their go-to, which is probably what they do the first time. But if somebody doesn't understand it, you have to have a different way of explaining something. And so a good teacher or a good coach will be able to explain the same thing in a couple or a few different ways to be able to get that point across. So it's okay to ask to re-explain or to give a different perspective. You just have to know how to do it and when to do it.
Even if the coach doesn't have another way of explaining it, like I think, and like you said, we'll get into communication with your teammates, but ask your teammates too. Hey, I asked coach, she really didn't give it to me straight. Can you help me understand this? Right. Like I said, we'll get into that in a second, but you kind of mentioned some ways that athletes can advocate for themselves without crossing the line, right? You talked about timing and the tone of everything. And I think that's important because as athletes, you don't want to cross that line. You want to advocate for yourself, but there's kind of a line there of, well, am I asking too many questions? Am I being annoying? There's a bunch of what ifs that go into it, but I know you've talked a lot about your students as well as your athletes advocating for themselves in the classroom, on the court, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, and if you're unsure about what we're talking about when we say advocate for yourself, if we have any of our high school athlete listeners, the way I kind of explain that is like take responsibility for your own self, like when you have a question, stand up for yourself, ask it, and that's what advocate means. Take responsibility for your own education in the classroom. If you have questions, go ask your teacher. Take responsibility for your own progression on the tennis court or on the football field or wherever you're at, and go ask your coach that question. Don't just think that you're gonna pick it up later or it's okay, I'll figure it out myself. Like advocate, stand up for yourself, and go ask that question. Just know how to do it and when to do it.
How to do it and when to do it. Those are the big ones there. Yeah, I like that. All right, let's go into communication with teammates. The second type of communication that is big for athletes. Now, if we want to relate this to non-athletes, this could be something like communicating with coworkers, communicating with your peers. But in terms of athlete, teammates here. So in my opinion, leadership isn't necessarily volume. Leadership is it just looks different. You don't have to be loud to be heard as a leader. Now we talked last week with Dad, and when we were kind of throwing out these compliments to each other, I said how I appreciated your ability to lead me specifically, but also, like your college team, and now you're a head coach. Your ability to lead is just something I think that sets you apart. So I think this is something that you might be able to talk on a little more of, just what leadership looks like in terms of communication.
Yeah. And like on our notes page, I know our listeners can't see this, but I really like what you just said. You don't have to be loud to be heard, and you don't have to be big to be seen. I think I would add on to that. Like I think that leadership is being able to connect and establish a relationship with whoever you're trying to lead, whether it's teammates or coworkers or classmates, friends, whatever. If you can establish a good, trusting relationship with other people, then you have that opportunity to lead, and to for them to trust you and to listen to you and to allow you to be an effective communicator. If you can't establish a good, trusting relationship, the people that you're trying to lead or communicate with are probably not going to get your messages and get your points that you're trying to get across nearly as effectively as you want them to.
Yep.
And then I think, like, it's doing the right thing. Integrity is a big thing. And whether you are being watched or not, whether you know you're being watched or not, because there's a lot of times in certain situations where you are being watched, but you don't realize it or you don't know it. And so doing the right thing all of the time, working hard all of the time. You'd be surprised at how many people walk through a weight room while there's just one or two people in there working, and you don't notice them because you're focused on your reps or whatever, and all right, Johnny's over there working hard. He's putting in some time, right? And that goes a long way, because adults talk to each other in other parts of the building, right? And athletes and friends, peers talk to each other, whether you want them to or not. And you want them to be spreading good messages about you and not bad messages about you. So if somebody sees you skipping reps, and then they're going to go tell their friends and teammates that, hey, I saw this person not giving their full effort on something, and I don't know if I want my team captain like that. That's just not how a team captain should be. And so I think it's the trust, it's the relationship, and then I think it's integrity. Make a good, effective leader. And then if you have those things, if you do that, then the people that you're working with are much more likely to allow you to communicate with them effectively. A big piece of this peer-to-peer teammate communication, I think, is body language, the non-spoken stuff. Like, I can give a big rah-rah speech, but then if I go off and after that as a head coach or even as a player when I was in college, all right, go for it, guys, it's all you, and I'm hands off after that rah-rah vocal speech, like that doesn't send a very good message, right? Yep. There's been studies on these types of things where the body language, the non-verbal communication, speaks higher volumes than the actual words that you say. The engagement, the good listening skills are one thing, a confident posture, your chin up as you're talking. Those are all huge things to be an effective communicator with good body language. In competition, if things aren't going well and your shoulders slouch and you're huffy and you've got a bad look on your face, and a coach or a teammate can tell that you've kind of checked out or that you're not as engaged as you used to be. That's all bad body language. That's bad communication. And so that's a huge part of good, effective communication from peer to peer, from teammate to teammate. Because I, as a teammate, can pick up on the body language of the other people on the court with me. And that energy is contagious. And if energy, I've said this since I was a player, and now I say it as a coach, but energy is like a cancer. And you can either be a good cancer and spread that energy to your teammates well, or you can be a bad cancer and you can spread negative energy and bad energy to your teammates. Which one do you want to be? Do you want to spread that good energy, or do you want to spread the bad energy? And that energy is spread more often through body language than it is through the words that you say. So body language is huge.
I think of you and I playing doubles, and that was always kind of my way of knowing where you were at mentally, is how you carried yourself. And you said it really well. Sometimes you can tell more through nonverbal communication, such as body language, than you can through just communicating. It's really easy to fake how you're feeling when you're having a conversation. It's really hard to fake how you're feeling nonverbally. That's a telltale sign of what's actually going on, is how you're carrying yourself. So I think you make some good points there. Now, as far as communicating with teammates goes, there's a lot of times that we might have some issues with teammates. Maybe somebody's not working so hard. Maybe we want to push somebody. Maybe there's stuff going on outside the court, whatever it may be. There's a certain aspect of addressing
drama is what I'm thinking of when you're talking about this. Yep, drama.
Oh my God, did you see who she was talking to? She said this behind my back, in drama. Yep. I get it, yeah. There's certain aspects of addressing issues early versus letting them build in terms of communication, right? It's a lot easier to address a problem when it's not really a problem as opposed to when it becomes a problem. I think of it as like a trash can. Here's my metaphor for the day. A
Yeah,
trash can
lay it
where
on me.
if you have a trash can and you put trash in this trash can, think of these issues being the trash. You want to take the trash out before it gets too full, before it starts stinking up the place and getting nasty. You want to take that trash out. In this metaphor, taking the trash out is communicating whatever that issue is, whatever that problem is. If you don't communicate that and you just let that trash build up, your house is going to stink. It's going to start smelling like nasty stuff in here. And you don't want that. So
It's gonna spill over onto the floor. It's gonna make a huge mess.
then you gotta clean it up. You gotta
You gotta clean
walk to the
all that
closet.
up.
You gotta get the broom. You gotta walk over, and you gotta sweep it up. Then you gotta dump it. Then you gotta take the broom back. It's just a lot of work.
Then you probably
Wouldn't
gotta
you rather?
scrub the floor because it's all messy
And
and
if the dog gets into the trash, now you gotta
oh
clean up the dog puke that's going on. Like there's
yeah.
just. Wouldn't you rather just take the trash out? Wouldn't you just
Take it out
rather
early
handle the issue?
and avoid all of those problems. Just take care of those issues ahead of
It's
time at the beginning.
it's that
Don't let them
simple.
build up.
It's difficult because I think this kind of goes back to what we talked about with communication with the coaches, right? Where we're
Yeah.
afraid of that. We're just afraid. We're just afraid in general. And so if there's drama or there's issues with your teammates, you don't want to bring it up because you don't. What if it's not a big deal? What if it's not something that needs to be discussed? Well, what if it is? What if it is something that needs to be discussed and now it's going to be blown into this big issue? Don't be afraid to address any issues that you have with your teammates. And you do that by effective communication.
Yep. Effective communication. I would add in
Effective.
there. Don't be handling quote. I'm gonna put air quotes around this. Don't be handling your issues behind somebody's back.
Yeah.
Like if I've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
a problem with you, Austin, I should like, and maybe I have this conversation with a couple of other people present where it's not just me and you where we're gonna fight and argue about it, and maybe we have some some things, some other people in the situation to keep the tension
Keep the
down a
peace.
little bit, keep the peace. There you go. But what I shouldn't do is go talk to my teammate and say, dude, I've got issues with Austin because he's a whatever and he's doing this and it pisses me off, and then they go tell somebody else, and then my story gets miscommunicated 2 or 3 times before it gets to you, Austin, and now you're really upset with me because the story has been twisted, and then you come talk to me and you're all upset, or the story gets back around to me somehow and things just blow way out of proportion. And hey, as a coach, if two players are beefing and they need to have a conversation with each other, if I have to, I'll be the mediator for that. Like if it gets to that
Yeah.
point, hopefully we've taken the trash out ahead of time and we don't get to that point. But if we get to that point, I don't want that
Take
drama.
the
I don't want
trash
that
out.
crap in my program. I don't need it. It's not going to be good for the team. And so I will mediate that kind of conversation. But again, I don't know if that drama's happening usually until it gets to a point where that trash hasn't been taken out and the garbage is spilling out onto the floor. And so then we need help cleaning it up. I think what the part of this conversation is we want to avoid that. How do we handle those issues with our teammates? And again, I think it kind of goes back to when to address an issue or bring something up, a conflict, and how you bring it up and how you address that conflict.
The timing and the tone.
The timing and the tone of it, how you do it and when you do it. We talked about having that respect for your coach or your teacher when you ask a question. I think that you also need to have that respect for your teammates and address it in a way, a respectful way. Being mature is having respect for people, even if maybe you don't feel like they deserve it all the time. That's part of growing up and being mature. And it's hard. I've been there. I've been a teen athlete. I've been an athlete with teammates that don't put in full effort or don't work as hard as I want them to. And so it's hard, but you have to have that maturity and that respect for your teammates. They're still people. They're still a human being, and you can't talk to them like they're not.
That's good. I like that. That's good. What about during a competition? So we're kind of talking about like, practice situations or things that aren't in competition. What does good teammate communication actually look like during a competition? When you're playing a basketball game and you're in the middle of that game, or, it's a little bit different for tennis because you have your times where you're sitting and not doing anything, especially during high school meets, but good good teammate communication during competition. What does it look like?
I think every sport is a little bit different. You mentioned in tennis where you're sitting and maybe not doing anything. I'm thinking in tennis with doubles where you've got 20 seconds to communicate with somebody between a point. And then that in-point communication, we talk about that with a good doubles team all the time. But let's try to talk in a more of a broad perspective so that we can try and hit more athletes here. I think that good communication in competition is clear and concise. The intensity is probably a lot higher than regular communication on the sideline or outside of the athletic situation because there's a game going on, there's a match going on, and you've got something on the line. So the intensity it ramps up, and I think the coach's communication ramps up. The player-to-player communication is going to ramp up. So like you got to try not to take things personally. And you got to try not to speak personally, but you still have to be able to get your point across.
Yeah.
Well, when I was thinking about this, like every team and every group of players has kind of their own method or mode of communication in competition, whether it's a type of language where certain words mean certain things. I remember like playing basketball, names of states were a type of like a play, like a different type of motion play on offense, or we had different ways of coding a defense, whether it was numbers or names or whatever. And so I think every team communicates differently. Knowing that language I think is really important, and good coaches make sure that their players know that and know their language. Like you hear NFL quarterbacks calling a play and they're speaking gibberish, but everybody in the huddle knows what they're talking about, and they're knowing like what keywords they're looking for, right? Like what, the receiver's in motion, or the protection that the line is shifting for, or whatever. So I think like knowing the language and being clear and concise to send your message quickly and effectively in competition.
You're talking about football here, and I'm so curious. This is completely off the rails, but I saw this TikTok the other day. Like, what would your cadence be? Like Pat has his 180 and what would you,
he says,
when you're up there
it's white 80. It's white 80.
Oh, white
it's
80.
A color.
White
Yeah.
80. Well, whatever. What would yours be? What would you say when you're up there? I got to know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to pick a color. Maybe
Okay.
Green 82.
Green 82.
Yeah. I think I drew an offsides. I think I drew an offsides flag on that one. I got a free play.
I think you did. I got
a free play on that one.
That was incredible. That was you really went with that. Okay, that was good. See, I think personally for me, I would do just the classic Lou 42. One of those. Just real classic, real deep voice type action. That is communication. We're tying this directly, and that is, ipso facto, one way or another, communication. Moving on here into communication with yourself. This is probably, I think, one of the most important types of communication, because this impacts a lot more than you think. I was just talking with an athlete today about self-talk and how it's inherently negative most of the time and how it needs to be positive. So I think all athletes can agree that there's just an internal voice that pops up after a mistake is made, whether that's a double fault or a missed free throw or whatever. It's usually the dang it, or what are you doing? I always called myself kid. Like, what are you doing, kid? Come on, kid, pick yourself up, do something. But there's always that internal voice. I know you have an internal voice, Andrew.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's important to recognize that it's not just after mistakes, that the internal voice is still there in the positive situations. After you do something well, it's usually just louder after mistakes.
Yeah, that's good.
I think so. Go ahead.
That's one thing that I'm trying to work with my athletes, clients, whatever you call them, on is, in my whole entire journey, I can only think of the negative self-talk that I gave myself.
Right.
Where, sure, there was positive of like, whoa, that was a great shot. Like, wow, that came out of nowhere. Let's do that again. But I remember the negative. If we can change that thought process to remembering more of the positives, things change so much. The positive psychology of it all changes dramatically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was just a thought that popped into my head there.
Yeah, no, and I like, when you're going through a practice session and you get athletes that start to get burnt out. like they're not having fun anymore, and they're
Hmm.
not enjoying their sport. That's because their negative voice, I think, has gotten so loud that it just completely drowns out the positive voice. And
Completely.
there is no positive self-talk after you do something well. You don't recognize that, hey, I executed that play really well. I hit that shot exactly like I wanted it to. You you go immediately from the good thing to either a negative outlook on the next point or the next play, or you go negative outlook on 2 or 3 plays ago, back to the negatives, back to something that went wrong. Like you don't focus on
Yeah.
the good. You have to have that perspective of not everything that I do out here is terrible. Not every play am I making a mistake. You have to recognize that you are still doing good things. And then we have to kind of reframe that negative bad self-talk after mistakes and make it something that like a way to refocus or to make an observation and then say, okay, we're moving on, or I need to do this better next time, and then it's done. Like the dwelling
Yeah.
on it is bad. The way that you're communicating that message to yourself, it makes a huge difference. The swearing, the bad words that you're muttering in your own head, like that takes your that's bad, that's negative self-talk. Not saying that you can't say swear words in your head, like sometimes that's an effective way of communicating things to yourself, but when it gets over the line or over the top, and you're only focused on that negative, then we gotta refocus, and we gotta figure out a different way to do it.
I think of athletes that are so ingrained in their negative self-talk that they negative self-talk even when they do something really well. I'm thinking of
Yeah.
some not to be named tennis players that we know of who will
Yeah.
hit just an absolute ridiculous shot, phenomenal shot, and say something bad about themselves, whatever it may be. Like that's just shows the effect of negative self-talk, that it just consumes you, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just again, just another thought there. I do like the reframing. That's something we talk a lot about in sports psychology in my classes, and everything like that in books. Is the reframing. Like it's completely normal to have those negative thoughts and those negative self talk moments, but how can we reframe that into something positive and something better? I think
Right.
that's a good point. A question that I want to ask, not so much to you, Andrew, but to the listener is I want you to ask yourself a question of, would you talk to a teammate the way you talk to yourself? I think that we mentioned this on a podcast beforehand, that this
Yep.
was brought up by a player of ours in recent years. And it kind of, it took me by surprise because I'd never looked at it that way, but it was, I don't know if you want to tell that story again or if you want to touch on it, but I think that's a good question to
I
ask.
mean, yeah, I mean, I won't tell the whole story. I think I told it when we had Coach Hoffman on
Mm,
back, I think, at the beginning of December. It was, yeah, I mean, it was one of our beginner players, and we were talking about communication, I think, and the positive self-talk. And she just said, yeah, if I say something to myself in my head that I wouldn't say to my teammate, I try not to say that. And so it's a really good way of thinking about it. Why would you talk to yourself differently than you would talk to a teammate? Especially in the moment, in the heat of competition, in the heat of the battle. You should be talking to yourself just like you would your doubles partner, the other people on the team with you that are competing for the same goal. If you catch yourself, athletes that are listening to this, if you catch yourself talking to yourself in your own head differently than you would talk to your teammate, then you need to reframe and refocus your perspective and the way that you're talking to yourself, and do it in a different way.
exactly. Well said. Let's wrap this thing up. Let's get this finished up with our newest, first,
Our new segment.
our new segment inspired by the legendary coach Kurt Davids. We're going to call
Yeah.
this, I don't know if they're ready for it, but they're going to get it.
I don't know if they are
This
either.
is,
I don't know if I'm ready for it.
this is, this is the Cat Lightning Round.
Let's go. I love
Did you
it.
guys like that
The
little
cat lightning
animation?
round.
Did you like that?
Oh my
That's
gosh.
pretty cool.
I love
That's
it.
a
The cat
regular
lightning.
thing from here on out. So let's outline the rules and regulations of this Cat Lightning Round. So what it's going to be is just a question or a statement, and I want a short, very short, one word off the top of your brain type answer
Yep.
for this question. And we're just going to kind of go through it. We're going to go quick like cat lightning, as Dad would like to say. So
Quick like cat lightning, baby. Let's
quick
do it.
like cat lightning. I think you've got the first question. So whenever you're
Yep.
ready, we can quick like cat lightning this thing.
All right, let's do it. All right, Austin, one word that describes your self-talk in competition.
Aggressively hyphen encouraging. Aggressively encouraging.
Okay.
That's my answer.
All right.
Who is the best communicator that you have ever played with?
I'm going to look at my doubles partners and probably Johnny Boutrone from my college days. Even though English wasn't his first language, he was a very good communicator in the moment on the court, and I loved playing with him.
That's a great
Sorry,
answer.
it's not
Love
you.
Johnny. That's okay. I know I'm not the best communicator. You can ask my wife. She'll tell you the same thing. Okay. I'm going to ask this one to you. What is one thing that athletes should stop saying to themselves?
Stop saying that you suck, or that play sucked, or your execution sucked. Like that's negative self-talk. Look at the try to find the things that you can do better, and then do those better the next time. Don't just be general and say that you suck. I hear that all the time. What about you? What's one thing athletes should stop saying to themselves?
That you can't do something. Reframe that and tell yourself
yes.
that you can do that, whatever it is
Or
that you're wanting to
add
do.
the word yet. Add the word yet on
Yet.
the end of it. I love that. I can't do that yet. I don't know how to do that
Can't
yet.
do that. There's a book out there called, I think it's The Power of Yet by,
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. Read it. It's phenomenal. Okay. What is your advice for anyone looking to become a better communicator?
Be brave. Be brave. Put yourself out there. Ask the questions. Don't worry about the what other people think about you. Be brave and just ask. What about you? Advice for someone to become a better communicator?
Take the risk. Take the risk. It's bound to pay off. It may not pay off right away. It will pay off down the road eventually. That is my advice to someone looking to be a better communicator. That concludes our cat lightning round.
Our first ever
That's
lightning
good.
round.
Wow, 1 of 1. That's great. So we're going to just kind of throw that in for all episodes, just kind of quick, bang, bang about the topic. This is going to be great when we have guests on. And I think we should do this without letting them know the question. So they really have to go off the dome.
Ooh.
Or throw in like one or two, just
I don't know.
bang,
It's easier. It's easier to be prepared and shorten your answer when you know the question.
That's true.
But, well,
That's true.
right, we can figure it out.
What about something like square root of 100, and they're just so taken back by the fact that it's a math question and not a sports psychology question? 10.
Or the fact that 100.
Is it not 10?
No, it is. It is.
Shut up, mom. Math teacher, mom.
Yeah,
She really prepared me for the real world.
Yeah.
And let's actually finish this up, and I want you to give one sentence takeaway from today's episode about communication.
Okay. My biggest takeaway for athletes listening to this episode is learn how to advocate for yourself, whether that's in the classroom or with your coach or with your teammates. If you feel like you should be saying something, you have to learn how to say it, because you're going to need that skill after your sport is done later in life, whether it's your spouse or your boss or your coworkers or whoever. You have to know how to advocate for yourself and how to communicate with the people that are around you.
I think my answer to that would be very similar. My sentence takeaway, in the sense that you're going to have to communicate, so you better learn. And I don't mean that in a scary, negative kind of way. I mean that in the sense of you're going to apply for a job one day, and they're going to look at how you communicate, how you sit in that interview, how you communicate with the person giving the interview or the boss or whatever. And that's going to make a difference. Good communicators make a difference every day, and they really make themselves stand out based on their communications. I think if we just put a lot of commas in there, that was one sentence, just kind of a run-on sentence. Yeah,
a couple of semicolons or something in there. Yeah,
those hyphens, those dashes or whatever. Dot, ellipses,
parentheses,
added thought, quotation marks. That was one sentence.
Yeah, it's in there. A footnote down to the bottom of the page.
A footnote. Yeah. See also page 49, and then 49 has the rest of the sentence. Okay, that's it. I think that's good. That was a short episode compared to our one with Dad, but I think that was good. As always, one of these days I'm gonna start saying this at the beginning so people can hear it before we start talking. But Set Point Mental Edge on all social media. Facebook, Instagram. We are trying to put some content out there. And in case you guys didn't know, I think this is a good time to say, Andrew, I think I'm definitely going to do that half marathon with you. I know I didn't text you back, but
Okay.
I've started training. I've started training. In terms of
Okay.
content, I'm turning some TikTok videos out of my marathon training. It's not
Okay.
good because I'm really sore right now, but we're going to do it, and it's going to be a goal that we can check off. It's going to be something to
Yeah.
work towards. So,
And
the
we can
Gobbler
talk about
Grind,
it on our podcast too. That would be
yeah.
that's a huge mental challenge that we can talk through. Let's do it.
In terms of goals, which this isn't what this is about, but I really want to, and I'm putting this out there in the universe. I really want to
Okay.
run. You're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh, but I'm putting this out there. I really want to run the New York Marathon, and they have a half marathon thing.
Yeah.
So I looked into it, and you can raise money for a charity and have that charity pay your entry fee to run the marathon,
Oh,
and all the money that you know collect or whatever goes to that charity. So I'm low key looking into doing that. You have to qualify, or you have to do, fill out
yeah,
paperwork or
yeah. Your
whatever.
time has to be good enough for it.
Yeah. But if I can knock out a half marathon and maybe keep training and get myself in a good position, I think that would be incredibly cool to do. So we'll see. We'll
That
see if
would be
that happens. We'll see if that's ever a real possibility. So, you got anything else for our listeners? You got one last thing to say to them?
No, I mean, communicate, learn how to do it. Appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully that we're effective communicators for the points and stuff that we're trying to get across to you guys. I think this was a good episode for any high school athlete trying to listen and get better at doing stuff. So send us questions if you have them. Like, that's one of the things. Communicate with us. Like, if you've got things that you want to know from us, you want to pick our brain about something, send us questions and put them in the comments, put them in the DMs, and we'll put them on the list of questions that we got to answer.
We're due up for another questions episode. I think
Yeah,
another
probably coming up
listener
sometime soon here.
given questions episode. So we'll get on that. We appreciate you guys listening. None of this is possible without the eyes and ears of you guys. So thank you so much for giving us a very, very small platform, but a platform nonetheless to kind of talk about
Yeah.
things that matter to us and things that hopefully
Spread the word.
will benefit.
Give us a share. Give us a shout out on your own socials. And if you feel like the stuff that we're
Ooh.
talking about is good enough, give us a share, and maybe we can get some other people in the Set Point Mental Edge universe.
The only people that I'm seeing sharing this right now are low-key mom and dad. Well, not even dad, mom. You, me, and mom. So if you want to join the elusive club of Set Point Sessions sharers, go ahead and do that. And you can be
How about
the
that
fourth member.
alliteration?
Alliteration. Set Point Sessions sharer. You guys have a great night. Thanks for listening. We will see you on the next session of Set Point Sessions.